Well, joining us in the studio is Conservative MP for Shipley, Philip Davies. Good morning to you.
Hi.
Let's get real here. This expectation that flights will get off to Rwanda before the election, it is now minuscule, that chance, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. Let's see.
Well, especially in what we're hearing about this never-before-used motion by peers.
Well, we all know that this is the toughest piece of immigration legislation that any government's introduced. I mean, even on the front of the bill, I've got the bill here. At the front of the bill, the government has to say whether or not it complies with the European Convention of Human Rights. On the very front of the bill, James cleverly makes a statement that says, I'm unable to say that this complies with the Convention of Human Rights, the European Convention of Human Rights, but the government nonetheless wishes the House to proceed with the bill. So we know that the House of Lords, which is, the government has no majority in the House of Lords, it's full of, sort of worthy lefties, frankly. We know that they're going to hate this bill and that they're going to do everything they can to block it. But, we're going to have to shame them into approving it, because at the end of the day, the unelected House, an unelected, unrepresentative House of lefties should not be able to block something that's so important to the British people.
Well, it's not all an unrepresentative House of lefties. I mean, I see the point you're trying to make, but they're not affiliated. What there are, though, is there are archbishops who we know have serious concerns, including the Archbishop of Canterbury, doesn't he, who says that God doesn't want this.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not here to represent God. I'm here to represent the British people and my constituents. And my constituents want us to sort out the problem of illegal immigration. And we're going to have to, whether he likes it or not, is going to be tough. So, look, we know that the Lords are going to cut up rough. But at the end of the day, the House, and they'll put down their amendments, no doubt, to the bill. We all know this is coming. And the House of Commons will have to overturn those amendments and send it back and say, look, you've had your say. The elected House must have its way.
But it's the time scale, isn't it? And it's the ping pong that can be played. I mean, do you honestly, hand on heart, think that there will be a flight that goes before the election, Philip?
I genuinely don't know, and I don't know how long the House of Lords are going to mess about with it. That's out of the Prime Minister's control. He can only do what he can do. He's passed this legislation. Everybody accepts that it's the toughest legislation that any government's ever introduced on immigration, on illegal immigration. It disregards the Human Rights Act. It disregards decisions by the European Court of Human Rights. It's not compatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. It is as tough as anyone could ever imagine a government doing. And so, of course, the House of Lords are not going to like it, but we've got to stick with it. And the timescales of the election are out of the Prime Minister's control. We can only do what we can do, and he's doing the best he can in the timescales he's got.
Philip, I want to ask you about another big problem for the government, and it's this admission from the Home Office that 6,000 asylum seekers are missing from the system and they don't know where they are. I mean, how is this allowed to happen in 2024? I mean, this is potentially 6,000 people who have gone into the underground economy, potentially even criminal gangs.
Yeah, this is nothing new. This has been happening for years and donkey's years, and and it's inevitable. I mean, I would like to see personally, when people come here claiming asylum, I'd like to see them detained until their application is processed. I mean, if they're genuinely fleeing persecution, I don't see there's any harm in them being safely detained. They're fleeing persecution until we can properly assess their application, and if they're genuine, they can be allowed into the community, and if they're not, then they can be deported. If you don't have that system, it's pretty inevitable that people who are falsely claiming asylum, bogus asylum seekers, if you like, are going to disappear into the economy because they're not going to want to have their application processed because they know it's going to be rejected. So, of course, they're going to disappear. This has been happening for years and years and years.
Is the system working, though, Philip? Because the criticism this morning is that these asylum seekers are not being fully assessed, that they are being, taken off the list too soon to try and meet the target set by Rishi Sunak, trying to clear that backlog.
Well, again, this is a problem that Rishi Sunak inherited, a massive backlog of applications. And that's why, in many respects, people couldn't be detained because the applications were taking so long. You couldn't detain people for that length of time. The Prime Minister was right to say we need to get down the backlog. But look, the thing of I remember this being an issue 20 years ago.
But you've been in power for 13 years to try and fix it, and still this asylum system is in chaos. continuing chaos.
No, exactly, which is why we need this bill. That's the whole point. That's why we need this bill to try and sort it out. I just want to pick you up slightly on this thing of we've been in power for 13 years. I mean, it's a slight misnomer. I mean, the first 5 years we were in coalition with the Lib Dems, so we were never going to be able to do anything tough on immigration. When we
but you were still in government.
But we didn't have a majority in Parliament. There's no way that we were going to do that. So that was it. We won a very small majority in 2015, which most of that Parliament for 2 years was taken up with the Brexit referendum. In 2017, we lost our majority, so we had no majority in Parliament then. The first time we actually had any kind of majority was in 2019, and within 3 months of that, we had the COVID pandemic. So this idea that we've had this sort of huge Conservative majority for 14 years is just not true. We've had a Conservative majority since 2019, in effect, and that was taken up mainly by COVID.
OK.